My name is Lisa Crowder and I am a jewelry maker from Austin, Texas. I work predominantly in sterling silver, 18 karat gold, bimetal, and enamel. I've been a full-time studio jeweler since 2004. I totally quit all my other jobs and went head on into jewelry, and luckily I'm still doing it in 2013. A lot of my designs kind of just start from more just kind of amorphous shapes, and then I do a lot of cutting of like heavy stock paper to kind of come up with those designs and kind of come up with because I like the more kind of organic line on the outside as opposed to a really sharp straight surface on most pieces, and through that I can kind of manipulate those and work on layering or taping them together, and basically kind of building small models is how I kind of start. When I first started making jewelry, I just used to cut straight into the metal and go for it, and but now I try to be a little bit more thoughtful about it and have that kind of building process. So probably in the last year and a half or so, probably about 2 years, I've started exploring within my enamel using stitching, which kind of came about when I was in college forever ago. I did a lot of stitching, thread stitching on paper, and I always really liked the contrast of how the stitching worked with the kind of rigidity of the paper. So when I started enameling, some of my first pieces I was doing, a lot of people know the bunnies that I did, and their little eyes were just little X eyes, and that came from when you were a kid and you had stuffed animals and the button eyes would break off and you'd end up with a little thread X for the eyes. And so from that, I really liked that, how the thread worked on the rigid enamel surface, and so it kind of has just grown over time, and I've done more and more stitching. So usually I start with a shape or an idea and do a lot of drawing on the metal, and then go through and drill all the holes, enamel it, go back and stitch it, and then do all the settings. I lived in Austin for almost 20 years now. It'll be 20 years in August. I moved there to go to University of Texas and fell in love and stayed. I moved to East Austin around 2000, before that side of town had really kind of started to, a few people were moving over there, but it was close to downtown, but still somewhat affordable. And through that, of course, a lot of artists moved over there in the last so many years, and a lot of studios started popping up. And through that, things like the East Austin Studio Tour and other things that have really fostered a pretty amazing artist community on the east side have come about in the last 12 or 13 years. Our studio tour is huge. Not all of the spots on the tour are necessarily studios per se. Sometimes it might just be somebody that opens up their house and shows work for a weekend or whatever, but I think the last tour we had, which was I think it was the 12th tour that we had, I think there were probably over 150 stops on the tour over 2 different weekends. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Thousands of people coming through the studios in 2 weekends.